So when we invite the stop that invites us to drop into the stillness, to the silent presence of being, one of the most important messages that comes forward in the stop is stop trying to solve the problem of you. Stop trying to solve yourself as a problem. To stop making yourself wrong. Stop making seeming others wrong. Stop making the world wrong. Just stop. Stop, stop, stoppity stop, right? Just to stop. Stop the wheels turning that are trying to fix and change. Stop the deeply rooted habit of self-doubt. Self-doubt, in a way, arises out of this deep unconscious guilt. And the unconscious guilt is the great misunderstanding and misperception that there's something wrong with me. Because as long as there is still a belief there is something wrong with me, all of our pursuits, we could say, in the direction of the seeming spiritual, which is essentially in the direction of reality, will always seem to fall somehow short. So all of our openings to the absolute, all of our openings to realize the stillness, the silence of being, the truth of who I am, will seem to constantly fall short and be somehow elusive, and will be brought back to the play until we really give up, in a way, the habit of duality, the habit of dividing, the habit of limiting ourselves, and even the habit of trying to abstract that by getting away from it, right? That if we abstract, we could say, the sense of our suffering, get away from that. Let's transcend away from that. Let's follow something spiritual that will get me away from that. If we abstract it, again, the abstraction will not lead us to the fullness of reality, will not lead us into the absolute wholeness of our being that includes everything. Because it's not about changing the experience. It's about changing the perspective. And the perspective of seeing that is limited and that constantly divides. The perspective of seeing that is rooted in this unconscious guilt, this self-doubt, and this deeply held misperception and belief that I'm divided from the divine, that I'm divided from wholeness, that there is something wrong with me, that I am a problem to solve, and my life is about trying to solve the problem of me. It's actually when this whole complex that is focused and habituated to strategize within the realms of this context of problem solving until this whole complex is illuminated in the light of the being, in the light of what we are recognizing our true nature to be. Being the light that illuminates it all, being the brightness, the brilliance that has clear vision, natural vision. Clear natural vision is awareness, simple awareness, the ability to be aware and to see when these habits to self-judge, self-criticize, to diminish. And so this sense of the stop, right? We can bring this sense of a stop into the abstract. Stop, come to the presence, be still, come to the silence. And it's abstract until it becomes truly a direct experience, a recognition. Not that we're seeking for something, we're not looking for something. We're discovering in the direct experience the stillness, the silent presence. We're opening to that which is underneath the mind waves, the ebbs and flows of the thought processes and mental constructs and narratives, which are essentially patterns of consciousness, right? There is only consciousness, but we're being invited to come to a perspective of seeing where we see clearly what is going on here. That we're not feeling powerless and tossed around as a wave divided from the ocean, that we're recognizing as the one ocean that we are able to open up to the fullness of what we are. We're able to open up to the fullness of what we are. To be the ocean. And in being the ocean, we realize that the stop is an invitation to be true, be the ocean, be the wide open spaciousness of being, be the true being that we are, indirect experience. So we move from this sense of something that is abstract, as if we're looking for something that is holy, that is apart from us, that we're looking for something that is divine, that is divided from us. And we come to realize indirect experience that what we're looking for is actually the fullness of our own self. We're looking as awareness to discover the aware being that we are. We're looking to discover our own fullness, our own beingness, that we are the stillness, the silence, the presence that just is. So far from abstract, we are opening to the felt sense of the presence and the vast, infinite landscape of reality that we open to in the stillness, in the silence. We open to this vast landscape that is underneath the landscape of the surface of life and the mind consciousness. We open to the ocean, the wide open, vast ocean of being. And from here, we have the incredible grace to look upon the play of the life. And instead of trying to get away from the life and push away the play of life, we start to realize in the recognition of the being itself, we start to recognize that in the beingness there is a knowing, and the knowing that knows itself has its own aliveness. And the aliveness of the knowing has a flow to it. And the flow of the knowing is the opening to the unified field, to the Atman. It's opening to the unified field, the field of remembrance, the field of the fine frequency of the being itself. It's subtle, it's light, it's the knowing, it's the opening to the awake field. And so here we recognize there's no one that is awake, but we drop in and out of personhood in a way, and into the being the awake field, being the whole wide open field of reality that's utterly free. And that we access this through our own presence of being, that we're not getting away from ourselves, but we're opening to vaster, more subtle dimensions of ourself. We're meeting the fullness of what we are, the subtlety, the beauty, the perfection of our true essence nature. And in this knowing and this recognition of the unified field, we start to realize that this flow of aliveness, this flow of knowing, is the flow of life. It's the hum of existence. And that existence and the play is not divided from this direct experience of yourself. That the play of life is absolutely one with all that is. And that wholeness cannot be whole in our direct experience if we are dividing our experience of life. And so the invitation of life is to not divide, to not limit, but to receive, welcome, embrace, and bless all of our life, everything. And in a way, we could say, in the presence of here now, there is no past and no future. There's only now. We enter the remembrance of the timeless. We exit on a certain level the realm of time and space, and we open to the timeless, infinite, unbounded reality. This is the true nature. And yet we're not divided from the experience in our humanness that plays a play of time and space. But we know in our essence nature, the shift of perspective, that we're not limited to that, and we're not limited by that. So we're opening to a much more broad, infinite, multi-dimensional direct experience of what we are. And that what we are is an all-inclusive experience. Now, we could also say that in truth, the true nature is not the body-mind, and that the eternal life that we are continues once the body-mind complex drops in the human realm. And that really what we're opening to is to recognize that we're not limited or bound by the play of the human life, that we exist independent of that, and that we are in fact, in truth, completely free of that, that the being that we are is absolutely free of the play of the life. And the knowing of this brings the most extraordinary freedom. But in a way, that's almost like the opening expansion into the infinite, unbounded, eternal, timeless being. And we discover this. But if we remain here without integrating, going through a natural integration process, it will make life feel discombobulated. It will make the continuation of the human life feel discombobulated. And so there's this extraordinary, almost like transcendence away from the projected world. The projected world, my life, is a projection of the mind consciousness. So as we open to this true nature, we open to realize that we're so much more than the projected world. And it's as if we transcend away from the projected world in order to realize and shift the perspective and realize our true nature. I am the stillness. I am the silence. I am the presence of being. I'm not a person. I'm not limited to the person. And there can be this incredibly freeing, direct experience of being freedom itself, being the reality itself. gloriously free, drinking in the nectar of bliss, and a compelling pull to rest here, to remain here, in the stillness, in the silence. And yet we could say that opening to this glorious realm of silence, the deep peace of being, the deep, silent peace and simplicity of being, of knowing, and then of deepening and refining the frequency, opening to the aliveness of the hum of existence, the aliveness of life, recognizing the eternal aliveness of life and this unified field. And yet the unified field then starts to invite that we, in our knowing of being the unified field and opening and resting in this frequency of one, we're invited to, in a way, enter back into the life, enter into the fullness of life, in the true perspective, in order to welcome all of life. And in the welcoming of all of life, we have this incredible grace possibility of realizing where in our lived experience we divide, where we limit, where we protect, where we project, right? And that this part of the unfolding is like bringing our remembrance of wholeness right back to the fullness of a sense of integrated wholeness, right back into the living expression of life. And in a way, there's this glorious service of bringing the light to the surface of life, bringing the fine frequencies through the lived experience, through the humanness, right to the surface of life, and actually being a beacon of light, being a transmitter of the frequency of the infinite, boundless, eternal life, and being an embodiment of the love that is the frequency of openness and freedom, being an embodiment of the unconditional flow of life. The unconditional flow of life is a loving presence. It's an all-embracing, welcoming presence that's like a field of love's embrace, and in that, a field of blessing. It's a field that's just blessing itself in and as everything. So we are being invited by life to not divide, but to bless everything. And so deeply included in that, of course, is the blessing of ourself and all of the parts of ourself that we divide and protect, and in our protection project blame and story outward, and the ways that we allow the unconscious guilt and shame to be held as a frequency of self-doubt, second-guessing, questioning, and holding this frequency of fear that believes I am a problem to solve. I must fix and change myself. And it's this releasing in the stop of that habit to keep moving towards the fixing, changing, self-improvement project, and instead resting in the depths of being, where the perspective has the clear vision to illuminate, oh, look at how there is a judging of myself. Look at how there is a judging or holding opinion that divides. Look at how I'm criticizing myself. Look at how I'm making myself wrong. Look at how I'm making someone else wrong. And in that, we enter also the consciousness that is held as memory. and the consciousness that is held as past, not as a story and accessing the past in time, but recognizing that any holding patterns of our story of life and our sense of past that are still being held in memory as some kind of resentment or projection or story, it's still being held as tension in the body. And you know, most often this resentment and tension of holding past and memory in the body is what creates illness and pain in the body. It's unconscious guilt and shame and holding patterns and resentments, right? And that's why the transmutation and the willingness to meet everything, welcome everything, integrate the whole lived experience in every moment is this opportunity to purify the life, refine the frequency of the lived experience so that the lived experience is a frequency of love and not a frequency of fear. Because, you know, we can be opening to the presence of being and having openings. Let's say in meditation, we can go deep in meditation and open to the field. And then we leave the cushion and we live in a frequency of fear. We can arrive at a kirtan gathering, for example, and we can sing our hearts out in this bhakti devotion, and we can enter the frequency field, and then we can leave and be living the life in fear. And in that situation, you know, our devotion can even be a fearful devotion instead of a loving devotion, right? So these are the subtleties we want to have an awareness of. Like a fearful devotion, a fearful discipline is about trying to get away from. A fearful, any movements that are coming from fear, practices, techniques, if the sponsoring seed of that's activating the movement, the karma, essentially, if the sponsoring seed is fear, then it will create a reflection of its own vibration, right? It will create a life that is a vibrational match. Now, if the sponsoring seed is love, if the activating seed frequency is love, it will create a reflection of love, which is reality. It's living in reality. Living reality is living in the frequency of love. So it's all about the frequency that we're living at. It's all about our living vibration, resonance of life. Because wherever we are activating from, we will either be activating the field of karma and the play of cause and effect that will very kindly offer us a reflection. It will offer us a reflection so we can meet the feelings, transmute, allow the nervous system to decompress and release the discordant patterns. So nothing is out of place, nothing is wrong. And that's where realizing the whole unfolding is this incredible grace. So if the sponsoring seed of activation is a rooted fear, a misunderstanding, a separation, a self-doubt, a self-hatred, you know, any of these kind of frequencies that we can bundle together in the fear frequency, which is as well, we could call it the unconscious guilt or the frequencies of shame. It's essentially the feeling like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken, I'm divided, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. And if our action is sponsored from that vibration, it will activate the field of karma, and the laws of karma will have no choice but to offer a karmic reflection, right? It's law, it's natural law. It's the way, it's the laws of nature. So there will be no option, no other option. And it's not a punishing option. And you see, this too is, oh, it's so gorgeous. It's so important. If we are in the frequency of fear, we tend to see the divine, God, as something that is separate from us and something that is punishing, right? Whereas when we're in the frequency of love, we're at a frequency where we can feel the field of grace and oneness. It's the unified field. It's some sense, even if there can be a speaking, well, I don't feel like I'm all the way there. That's okay. You don't need to be all the way there. You're on your way, right? Be where you are, because being where you are is what carries you deeper and further and more into the fineness. So just that sense of it, of knowing this is all grace, this sees the glory, God, the divine, as being loving, as being merciful, as being supportive, on the way to realizing you're absolutely one with the divine, that we are one with the divine. But we go through these almost like layers of opening. As we open, we shift from that frequency that sees a punishing God to possibly a merciful God, to a supportive God, to an actual loving God, to actually a oneness with, a belonging to, being the child of, to really opening to there's only God, just this, just God, what is, right? So it's like we open through these layers of frequency of consciousness as we recognize that everything is grace, we come to a greater ability for our surrender and devotion to be, our devotion itself is arising out of the frequency of love. Like we're swooning in the bath, right? we're just in that devotion that's just like, I just love whatever. I love Shiva, I love Krishna, I love the Divine Mother, I love the light, I love God, I love Jesus, you know, I love Allah, I love, you know, I just love. I love truth. I love this unfolding. I just love this, right? So I want to sing the names. I want to be in devotion, right? And it's coming from love. And so this frequency brings back that frequency. It's like a sanyama, you know, with a sanyama, we put a frequency out and we get the frequency back. We put a frequency out and the frequency comes back. But the same thing happens in the field and the laws of karma. We put something out, a frequency out, and it comes back. It's like the boomerang, the grace of the boomerang of consciousness. It gives us back what we're putting out. And so it becomes so important to recognize where we're seeing from and what we're putting out. Because what we're putting out is always inviting us to deepen, always inviting us to deepen. And if we don't take it personally, if we don't move into those frequencies of closing down, in a way, closing down our frequency and going to fear and doubt and shame and guilt, it's like almost going into the denser frequencies where the fog of Maya comes in and we can't see clearly. And in the fog of Maya, where we can't see clearly, the only option is for karma to be playing, right? The karma will play, and the karma is playing to actually offer the possibility of meeting the feelings, not perpetuating the karma, but meeting the feelings of stress, the old stresses, the old karmas that are arising in the nervous system, and to realize that as consciousness, as an intelligent process, and not as a divided being, we're having this graced opportunity to meet the feelings and sensations, to be aware, to watch, to receive it all, embrace it all, and bless it all, and actually realize that we have the power to meet and transmute it all through the nervous system. And in a way, we could say the human nervous system is consciousness, and we access through our nervous system our consciousness, which then segues to the collective consciousness. So as we transmute and meet and resolve the karmas within our lived experience that feels like a unique lived experience, and in a way it does have a uniqueness to it, as we transmute, we offer the nectar and the fruit of our deep commitment to this process of surrender and devotion and transmutation. We offer the nectar to the whole because it ripples out as one consciousness. It ripples out. It can't help but affect. And as it ripples out, it sends those gorgeous shifting frequencies outwards, and they start to affect the whole consciousness, the collective. And then the ripples that come back to us are a reflection of where we're living from, right? So it's this incredibly beautiful, intelligent process that we are, right? And, you know, it doesn't matter what let's say, flavor of frequencies of the divine, you know, bring us alive. It doesn't matter what teachings, what lineages, what you know, what kind of wisdom we are drawn to. Essentially, what we're inviting is that we extract the essential wisdom of the Siddha light that is in everything. It's in all wisdom teachers across the board, and we could call that the mystical, the mystical revelation that is the heart of all traditions and lineages. And because we all have unique configurations of laws of nature, we're drawn to different flavors. But as long as we don't get trapped in a sense of division and limitation and close the door, like this is the way, my way, not your way, right? It's opening to the essence, wisdom that is in everything. And in a way, being able to distill that essence and live that essence so that it moves from the abstract resonance that brings us alive to being actually, we could even say, like a practical support in living an integrated life, right? Because there's nothing abstract about the human lived experience, right? It's visceral, it's wild, it's intense. And it's about, in our lived experience, allowing that whole lived experience to be one flow of grace, knowing that it's one flow of grace. And that the flow of grace is about opening to the divine, opening to the light, opening to the finer frequencies, recognizing the expanded, boundless being that we are, recognizing that we are eternal, and that we're not the mind body, that we're not a limited person. But as long as we have a body, let's find out what's really going on here. Let's find out, well, what is this body for? What like what is this life for? Am I really here just to kind of block it all out? Right? Right? Yeah, I don't want to know about any of that. And then suddenly, you know, we find that we're triggered, or we're angry, or we're frustrated, or we're feeling really hurt. What's going on? And then we have a sense, well, now I have to go to the cushion. Now I have to sit and I have to find the being. But what if we can actually navigate the moment of being triggered or angry or upset or feeling hurt? In the moment, we can actually navigate the lived experience of the human life without leaving, like dissociating in any way from the human life, and without feeling like we have to abstract ourselves and go to the cushion, that we can know deeply enough from our hours on the cushion, right? That we can bring this into the lived experience, and we can, in the moment, recognize, okay, this is one holistic moment. This moment is one whole. What if I embrace this whole moment and I recognize, okay, what's here first? The trigger, usually, the feelings, the nervous system that's stirred with a charge. Okay, what if I meet the feelings? But already we notice, oh, awareness is here, because awareness is recognizing, oh, there's a trigger here. I can meet the feelings. I can be with the feelings. Maybe I can even say this has to all be grace. Okay, something's happening, something's stirred here. This has to all be grace, right? So we meet the feelings, and there's an opening to recognize, okay, when I meet the feelings and I'm just present with the feelings, the charge, and I don't try to get away from it by projecting or, moving into a story that wants to project and, go into the narrative. What if I just meet the feelings? And then I realize that awareness is here. Awareness is here aware of the feelings. And I start opening to the fullness of the experience of this moment. The feelings are here. Awareness is here. What else is here? There are some thoughts here. Okay, aware of the thoughts. Aware of a feeling of, oh, I want to get away. I want to project. I want to say that one's to blame. Okay, see it. Don't make it wrong. Just see it. Just see it all. What's happening here? Body sensations, heat, whatever, right? We're just so aware and welcoming of it all. And so we start to shift, that we recognize then, well, awareness is here. The being is here. The stillness is here. In the fullness of this open, unconditional moment, then love is here. The presence of love is here. And the presence of love is loving whatever's arising. Just by being aware and illuminating. And we watch for the mind interceptors that say, you need to do this, you need to stop, you need to, it's like, no. That too, I see that too. I see that habit of the mind to say, you need to fix this, you need to change this, you need to be different, you shouldn't be angry. Now look at how angry you just got. Now you're angry and judging yourself for being angry, right? And that's all over here in this, where the frequencies are discordant and taking shape. But this presence that's aware and just watching, we just notice, does this presence actually impose any agenda or instruction? No. Love just loves. The presence is just present. And in the presence that actually just allow the feelings in the nervous system, allow the actual frequency of being angry or being hurt or being stressed or fearful, frustrated, allow the frequency just to be felt. We could say, first of all, in the sense of the body, but then realize that the actual sensation is just everywhere. And just allow that sensation to be watched, to be held. And just watch what happens. Can also, in this moment, once there's a settling, can just start blessing. Bless the part of me that is angry. Bless this young child. Bless this young one that is fearful and stressed. We often could say, in such a moment, notice, have you felt like this ever before? And normally we will say, yeah. This is very familiar. Many times, because karma is looping, right? And the grace is that it's looping because it's offering us another opportunity to clear it, to resolve it. Now, in a way, it's not so well known. It's not a mainstream teaching that we can actually clear and resolve the karma, right? And so as we open to this possibility, we open to this incredible opportunity to not keep perpetuating the karma by projecting it out or projecting it in, and kind of stirring that deep held sense of guilt and shame and self-doubt, which really can also be playing as a self-hatred. And in a way, you know, that deep self-hatred, that deep judgment is our core division from the divine. And it's almost like a hatred of the divine. And that's the place where we'll feel like abandoned by God or rejected by God, or that God is a punishing entity, right? And we start to see, like, maybe through the life, like things that happened in the young life that where we gathered those beliefs, where we took on those beliefs, where we misperceived situations and we took on the belief that there's something wrong with me, that I'm broken. We took on beliefs about ourselves and our family and our, or, you know, like our tribal, our family tribe, and the ways that we behave, and then how do I fit into that family tribe, and what is my needs met structure? How do I keep connection here? How do I find my place? And we start to realize, oh, there's these ways are still functioning habitually through us as adults, right? And the grace is that we realize that we have this possibility to bring these young parts of us that have been exiled and pushed away. We have this possibility to welcome them, to hold them in the loving presence and frequency that mirrors the love that is the true nature in all of these parts of us, so that these parts can actually return fully to the innocence, right? And the return to innocence is in a way the protection and the deeply held feeling of guilt and shame and closing actually opens and flowers and returns to its original innocence, its original frequency of love. And we start opening to more joy and more playfulness and more delight and awe and wonder, which are very like childlike qualities. And yet we also have the deep wisdom of a life lived, right? So we're holding again and living at this frequency of innocence and awe. And yet we don't have the same, let's say, naivety, but we have a vulnerability and an openness and a frequency of love, right? So we realize that we have this possibility actually in the lived experience, that the lived experience is, you know, we can sometimes imagine that the lived experience takes us away from our spirituality, but we realize that the lived experience is the actual most profound possibility of our spiritual life, because it's bringing us to an integrated realization of wholeness and what reality is, right in the center of the lived experience. And it's kind of integrating in our lived experience all the seeming disparate parts, that we're bringing all the seeming disparate parts of our very own self that we fragmented into stories of shame, of guilt, of division, of unlovableness, unworthiness, all the fragments of projection, that one hurt me, that one did something wrong, that one wronged me. Where it's like we're pulling back all of the projections that are towards our own self and our life story. And in a way, we're coming to a depth of responsibility where we realize not that I personally have created it, this life story, but this is a karmic unfolding. This is a multi-dimensional, multi-lifetime karmic unfolding. And in the seeing of that, I'm reclaiming the power back from the sense of division and separation in the projected world. I'm reclaiming the power from the mind and the body, and I'm pulling that power back to the remembrance of my essence nature and my oneness with God. And I realize that in my oneness with God, oneness with the divine, with the light, with the glory, the oneness with the mother, that actually I'm in true power. I'm in divine power. I'm in a power of wholeness. I'm in a power that's unlimited. I'm in a source field that's unified. And the power here is love, is light, that I'm one with the principle of illumination. And I have the power here then to illuminate my life and bring all of the threads of my life back to the frequency of love, so that the sponsoring seed of my life is an emergent creation of reality, instead of being an emergent creation of the sponsoring seed that is the karmic field, where, you know, the action that happens in the karmic field is action that is bound in the samskaras and vasanas. It's bound in the karmic imprint. And that karmic imprint, some of it as it plays out in the life, we'll recognize from our young life, and some of it we won't fully recognize because it's multi-lifetime. And the multi-lifetime is really just the deep well of the unconscious, we could say, right? It's the collective consciousness that is still unconscious. And through our lived experience, it's like we have an assignment to illuminate and reveal the unconscious in our lived experience. And our assignment to reveal and illuminate the unconscious, allow it to surface through our lived experience and life experience, to meet it, transmute it, illuminate it, reveal it in the light, and great glory, reveal it to be love, right? We're revealing that everything has only ever been love. So we reveal that it's like we reveal the grace of everything, and it can seem impossible to the mind, but we recognize as we refine and deepen in this unfolding that we have the capacity to reveal every character in the life as being the same love, the same light, the same one, and that the whole unfolding has been some kind of grace. That, you know, in the early life, the stresses and the traumas that we can have experienced in this kind of, you know, being incarnated in this Kali Yuga, the stresses and the traumas and the you know, the challenges of the young life, actually we start to see what carried us inward to start searching for something more profound. We started to search for love. we started to search for the light. We started to search for like like what is even what is wrong with me? Why is this life so hard? Where is God? Why has God left me? Right? It carried us in our young life inside. And as we got carried inside, it's like we came into contact with what was still innocent and profound in us. Even if we decided in a way to protect ourselves and to keep our light hidden, to keep our essence nature hidden. And so we could say that in the life, as we move through the revealing of the unconscious, it's like revealing what's been suppressed and repressed. But what we discover underneath the repression of all kinds of emotional entanglements and discordance, we discover that what's actually been repressed is our light, is our innocence. What's actually been repressed and was a protective mechanism that made sense to us in the young life was a sense to protect our deep-rooted knowing of the light, of the purity, of the divinity that we are. And so we live like in a sense of separation, and we move through the life divided. But as we open in this process, we open to remember, oh, I tucked away my light. It's like I buried it deep in my heart. I protected myself because I felt like I had to. I protected myself, and I learnt the ways from my parents and caretakers to be what it seemed like they wanted me to be. And I lived a life being what it seemed like the world wanted me to be. But I was inside, I was always kind of looking around like, I'm sure I'm here for something more profound than this. I'm sure that I'm here, with a divine mission. I'm sure that I'm here for love. Why is no one else talking about that? Right? We're waiting for the moment to kind of expose the glory of our hearts, right? We're waiting for the moment. And it's like sometimes we meet people, we often, it would happen in relationship, that we meet someone and it's like, oh, now it's safe to expose the love that I am. And then we expose the love that I am, and then somehow the ego ping pong plays out, and we get hurt and we feel disappointed. Like, wow, I exposed my heart, and I got disappointed, and I got betrayed again, right? Because the karma's playing out, and we're creating that relationship out of our protection, right? So as long as our protection's in place, we're creating everything out of that protection. So we wonder, well, why is life so hard? Why is that? Why did that happen again? And really what's being invited is this illumination of the process that we're speaking about here, that we start to recognize the grace that when we feel hurt and betrayed, and like life is hard, that's the compass showing us that there's an opportunity to meet something here, that it's not that we're misaligned, but it's that we're creating from fear, we're creating from protection, and we're being given the opportunity to be cracked open, because then we recognize that in the seeming heartbreak of disappointment, of whatever happens, whether it's a relationship that disappoints and causes a sense of heartbreak, or whether it's the loss of a loved one, it creates a sense that cracks us open. It starts to crack open the layers of our protection, and we feel so raw and so vulnerable. But until we really see how this all works, we protect again. It's like we get back on the horse, right, of life, and we start galloping again. And then it seems like we fall. But then if we're expecting a fall through our deeply held protection and this frequency of fear, then the fall will come. Life won't disappoint. It will give us what we're anticipating. So what we start to realize is, oh, okay, this is happening because the sponsoring seed of activation is of the karmic field, and it's activating the samskaras, the unconscious, to bring forward what needs to be met, what needs to be seen. So there's a grace to all of it. And the more that we start to see the grace of all of it, we receive it, and we have the capacity in those moments of disappointment and the varying degrees between disappointment and despair, let's say, hurt. We have this possibility to meet the feelings and unwind the discordant patterns of protection, of shame and unconscious guilt and self-doubt, and at the same time we're usually led to practices and teachings that where we're starting to open, and we start to realize the sanctuary of being, of the silence, of the true nature. Our heart starts resonating at a deeper knowing. We discover the guidance of the divine, of the Sat Guru, of the light within. We start realizing that even though it can feel like it's buried in there, we can access it, and we start to realize that in a way, it's like the outside world is cracking us open. And as we open in our deepening practices and remembrance, it's like we're opening from the inside. We're softening from the inside, and we're being cracked open from the outside. And at some point, it's like there's a meeting, right? That we start realizing the grace, we start realizing the oneness, that softening from the inside and knowing the light, the glory, the beauty, the stillness, the freedom that we are, is this ground that allows us to keep meeting, keep getting up again, keep moving through life. And then the more that we see the grace, and we're really entering the frequencies of true surrender and true devotion. And so the sponsoring seed of our life starts to be more courage and more willingness and more openness and more resilience and more sense of the unified field, and an openness where natural surrender happens more easily. And we start realizing that we're working in alignment with the glory, with God, with the divine, that nothing is against us, that everything is somehow supporting. We start to shift the frequency and the perspective of seeing, and the life starts to shift as a reflection of that, right? Incrementally, in a way. And yet at the same time, the knowing is like a constant, immediate knowing. It's always here, it's always with us. Our knowing of the being, our knowing of the true nature, it's always here. So it's such an incredibly profound process of life. And the more that we really see the intelligence of what's happening, and in sharing that here, it's like the sharing is, it's not giving information, it's not giving a teaching, it's enlivening the resonance of the intelligence that you are made of, that we are made of. It's a meeting in the field where the intelligence is a frequency that's alive, and we're made of that. We're all made of that. So according to our unique configuration and how open the consciousness is and where we are in this unfolding, we join and we attune as one field, and we receive the nourishment from the finer frequencies that we haven't opened to yet. And we use it as an opportunity to attune in the field. So in a way, we could say the field of satsang is a field where we join in the frequency of love, in the frequency of truth, and we're being facilitated by that frequency. All of us are, and we join, and it's like we offer ourselves, and our frequency into the field, and we join where there's no hierarchy. There's no one that's higher or better. There's just one field, and we join, and it's like we plug into this field, and we receive the nourishment that we need. We all equally receive the nourishment that we need in this field of satsang, right? It's a field of grace. It's a field of blessing, and we find ourselves feeling and being blessed and blessing and receiving the grace of everything that happens in this field, whether it's the sharing in this situation that moves through this form, whether it's the sharings that come forward through interaction. It's all grace for all of us, all nourishment. So wherever we are, we're open to the capacity that we're open, and then we receive the nourishment at the capacity that we can receive it. And there's no hierarchy, and there's no right and wrong. There's just this. There's just this. And it's equally available for all beings. And the grace is that as we gather and we receive and share in this way, we also offer the reverberant frequencies out to the field of the whole, of course, because it's not just our satsang is the frequency field of consciousness. We are a satellite in a whole field, and so our joining is just reverberating and offering the uplifting frequencies to the field. Everyone is nourished. Everyone, every being that is one in the beingness is nourished. How beautiful, right? How incredibly beautiful. So it also inspires us to have a deeper courage and willingness to do the work, because we realize that the integrated lived experience is in every moment an offering to the whole. It's kind of a service, that the more that we're living in the knowing of this, and it's so important that we don't go into the subtleties of making that like, oh, I need to be living in this frequency and that frequency is wrong. It's to know that the whole integrated lived experience, even the moments where we forget and we move into stress, or we're moving from fear, all of it is part of the whole flow of grace. And it's really about the longing of our heart, and the priority of our heart is to be focused upon the upliftment, to be living in a holy yes, to be in a way receiving the invitation to be living at the frequency of love, opening to receive more light, receiving the invitation to be an instrument for bringing that love, that light to the surface of life. That it's all about the frequency of our, let's say, our living intention, which is like the living heart sankalpa. That living the heart sankalpa is to be living the heart's longing to live in freedom, in love, in openness, and to be in absolute service in our lived experience in the unique ways as a divine instrument, an instrument of the light, an emanation, we could say, of the unconditional love. And as long as our heart is resonating with that longing, there's no one judging us anywhere except our own mind, right? So every time we catch the mind that is judging, it's to see how we can be so bound in the idea that I'm a problem, life is a problem, and trying to solve that problem, instead of realizing the only problem is the belief that you're divided from God. The only problem is the misunderstanding that there's division from the divine, from the whole. And when we start to resonate in a kind of surrendered knowing, there's only one, there's only grace, there cannot be any division. Even if it doesn't feel to be known all the way through, that we start living in this surrendered grace that is like this willingness to keep saying yes to what we cannot see yet, but that we somehow know as a spark in the heart, because that absolute knowing is in our heart as the heart. And even if it's still protected, we do have this knowing because it's what we've been seeking for the whole life. We've just been seeking in the external, and it's not in the external. It's inside our very own heart. And so this realization is the realization of our very own heart truth. It's opening in a way through all of the ways that we protect ourselves from ourselves. It's the ways that we've repressed our knowing of our own divinity, the ways that we've covered our own light and dimmed our own light. So it's actually the revealment and the opening and revealing of the radiance of our own heart and the love that we are. And that's the beauty of this unfolding, is that what we're revealing doesn't come from out there. It comes from unprotecting the heart, so that the light and the purity and divinity of our true essence nature can be revealed and can shine its radiance right on the surface of life, right? Yeah. How beautiful. Mm-hmm. So just noticing as these words come, what is happening in your system? Notice how the intelligence recognizes, and as the intelligence recognizes, it drops the sense of deepening into the stillness, into the silence, and into the aliveness, into the recognition, like a recognizing. It's like re-sparking the intelligence of the whole field of consciousness that you are, to remember, to illuminate the deeper truth. And as this sparks and comes alive, it's yours, it's you, it's what you are, it's who you are. You are this intelligence, you are this love, this light, you're made of this. That's all that's happening here. And it's an impersonal, collective field of consciousness, moving within itself intelligently, that it never divides. And yet there is a unique lived experience, but the unique lived experience is realized to never be a divided experience. And that's realized in the essence nature. That the being that you are is the being that we all are. The love that you are is the love that we all are. And of course, that extends out to the whole of the human realm and beyond, of course, right? That there's only one thing happening here, and that is love. And our mission in this human life, as long as we have a body, is to reveal how is there only love here? How is this all only love? And how can we shift the frequency enough that the things that maybe play out on the screen that do not look like love, in a way, they're revealed to be love in our deepest knowing, but in a way, they start to shift and change because they don't need to play out in a way the very obvious act of separation and division, because the things that play out that we see on the screen of life, it's always a reflection of our own consciousness, of our own mind. And yet we're also always, in our humanness, in our human incarnation, we're always part of the collective. So even if we could say here, there's a knowing, it's only love, there's only love. But there's, as part of the collective, there's a knowing that there's a vision of many beings, of fear and hatred on the surface of life. There's not a buying into that, but there's a knowing that it's playing, because as part of the collective, we can feel the entanglement, and we can feel that there's a great imbalance that is creating a projected collective world in the human realm, right? And so, in a way, the way that we work with that is to make our allegiance with love, to make an allegiance with the clear vision, and not make an allegiance with the fear and the story. Because the more that we uplift the frequency of love, it reverberates to touch everyone, right? And that, in a way, is the greatest service of love, is to love and to rest in the frequency and keep the frequency in allegiance with love, even when what is on the screen is wanting to tell us otherwise and wanting to seemingly pull us into fear. It's like those are the moments where grace is offering us a test to say, use your seeming choice here to choose love and reverberate at the frequency of love. Whatever this looks like, use your knowing of love to keep the frequency of the field of love known, because everything that's happening, even if it looks really monstrous, it is all a divine orchestration. But the divine orchestration in the laws of karma can only move according to those laws of karma, right? Because we might say, well, why does the divine create all these horrible things happening to people in the human realm? But the divine, the whole orchestration means that the laws of karma have to play themselves out. They have to move according to the intelligence. So where fear is the sponsoring seed and the karmas are being activated, they have to activate the things that are being activated until the frequency shifts enough, right? And in a way, that's all about inviting through what will get humanity to listen, inviting humanity to recognize its divinity, because humanity in, let's say humanity in absolute allegiance with God, with the glory, with the divine, is a frequency of the divine. It is the glory, it is the light. But humanity playing out its frequency of fear is acting out the fear and the separation on the surface of life. So the whole thing is vibrational, and the whole play of karma is vibrational. So that's why our allegiance to living at the vibration frequency of love, of the unified field. And so in a way, it's whatever we see, to not make it wrong, not make an allegiance, because we're being sneaked into making an allegiance with fear, which is collaborating with whatever the pictures are on the screen. So it's a really important piece, because it's so easy to go into fear and kind of take personally what we're seeing. But the invitation that we're being given is to trust our deepest knowing, and to not make an allegiance with the fear, but to make an allegiance with upliftment, with the whole, to not see and engage kind of in the projected story, the view of the projected world, but to pull the projection back, even if we're seeing something on the screen that feels like a macro situation. It's to pull the projection back and recognize the way that we make a difference on that macro level is by recognizing, well, when I see those images, or when I see or read that story, my heart breaks. But don't make a projection that your heart breaks for those people. Let your heart actually break open, right? Because as your heart actually breaks open, instead of projecting it, what someone else's experience is, let your experience be so full that it truly cracks the heart open and deepens your knowing of the love and uplifts the frequency of love. It's like, let it unprotect your heart, right? It's like letting whatever we see unprotect our own heart, break our hearts open, crack the armor of our protections. Let us feel the devastation until we feel compassion, but not through projection, but through really allowing our own feelings. And this is how we take the macro into the micro, transmute it and bless it. And yes, we feel compassion, and we send, and our true frequency of compassion for ourselves reverberates out as compassion for all beings, right? That's like the bodhisattva, true bodhisattva compassion is the willingness to take in the feeling of pain, not by imagining and projecting and creating a narrative, but by actually letting ourselves be truly touched, and knowing that somehow I'm contributing to the creation of this. Let me recognize my contributing through the battle inside me, and let me do the work here to untangle my threads of contribution by not being pulled into contributing anymore, by collaborating with fear. Let me pull in all of the ways that I may be contributing to the expression of separation and division and limitation and fear. Let me pull all of those threads in and let my inner realm of consciousness, of my own inner functioning, my own nervous system, be where the transmutation is happening. And then may all beings receive the nourishment of my transmutation and my heart shifting. May all beings receive the grace of me feeling the pain of my own heart without a projection. And as I come to realize, as I open to more love and more compassion and more joy, actually, that I'm allowed to be joyful, even if it seems on the screen that others are having a hard time. Actually, my joy, my true joy, like real joy and delight in life, is actually too a contributing, uplifting frequency, right? That we're not in any kind of projection imagining what anyone else is experiencing, because we're only imagining it through our own internal experience and our own memory and our own karmic backlog, our own samskaras and vasanas, right? The only thing we have access to. We don't actually have any access to any information about anyone else, ever, ever. So let us pull it all in and really deepen. And at the same time, we join in companionship and we share what we are living, what we are noticing, what we're transmuting, what we are seeing. We're revealing the love together. And as we reveal the love and we uplift the frequency of love through our joining, our gathering, our sharing, then the reverberations of this are shared with the whole, truly with the whole, right? Truly with the whole.